Podcasters spend so much time doing their podcast that they often lose sight of why they are podcasting. Getting out of the tactical mindset is not easy. Maybe it's something you should meditate over. Hello and welcome to another Podcast Pontifications with me, Evo Terra. Podcasters tend to cluster in two groups, I have found. There are those who think about their shows all the time, like nonstop. They're always thinking about their show. That's one group. On the other end of the spectrum are those who don't think about their show until they realize, oh crap, I have to get an episode out today. Those are obviously the extreme views, but if you plot it out, you'd probably find a barbell-shaped graph of the number of the amount of time people think about their show. All the time on one side, none, until the very last minute on the other one. And that's a challenge. That's a challenge that everybody has to face because you're fighting your own nature. It's not great to constantly obsess about your podcast, nor is it great to ignore it until the very, very last second. It's got to be a happy medium in the middle. And that's where I try to occupy. I try to occupy a happy medium, even though I'm weird. You know I'm weird for a lot of reasons, but number one, I talk a lot about the future of podcasting, where podcasting should go, and provide you with some things to think about in podcasting. So for me, I'm one of the people that are always thinking about podcasting. I don't, however, always think about the podcast, this particular podcast, or the others that I'm involved with. Those I think about individually a lot less, but I do think overall of podcasting. So what I want to talk about today is some techniques to get you into podcasting, and I'm going to use the magic M word, and I don't want you to leave me, because hang on. I'm talking about meditating about your podcast, but not that kind of meditating. Not that kind of meditating, okay? Just relax for a second. This is not some hippie trip. I'm not breaking out the drum circle, right? We're not going to pass around the sage. None of that. That's a part of my life. I've done all of those things, but no. No, I don't want to try and get you into that mindset. I want to talk about meditation. I'm not talking about transcendental meditation, okay? I don't mean that. We're not going into trances. None of that fun stuff. I mean, maybe you want to do that. Maybe you want to go on what is that stuff? Esqualo? That's not even the name of it. Whatever it's called, some trip. Fine. Knock yourself out if that's what you're into. That's not what I'm talking about. Not that kind of meditation. And when I say meditation, I also don't mean just planning out your next episode. That's not meditating. That's planning out your next episode. That's two very different things. It's not meditating on your next episode. We're talking about meditating about the podcast. I'm also not talking about taking the time to do the work of your podcast. That, again, is the tactical issue. You're probably already doing too much of that right now. So sure, you need to carve out time to plan out your next episode and actually do the work of your podcast, but that's not meditating. I'm talking about dedicated time where you actually and truly meditate about your podcast. Meditate on your podcast, whatever adjective or verb you want to use for that. And I mean specifically you and your podcast. That relationship is what I want you to think about. That's the meditation we're looking for. You can meditate a lot of different ways, and I'm going to talk about those in just a moment. I want to talk about, for you, first off, when you find your quiet space and you carve out your half an hour if you can, 5 minutes if you can, whatever the timing is, and I'm not here to set that for you. But when you carve out the time, I want to give you some things to think about when you are meditating, when you've calmed down, kind of let the outside world go away. Big fan of using earbuds with noise canceling. So much help to me when I try and do this. But I want you thinking about things when you're doing this meditation. I want you to think about the future. Now I don't want you making a 5-year plan. Quite often you close your eyes, you sit down, you start thinking, all right, next week I'm going to do this. Next month I'm going to do this. That's not helpful. Or you go the other side and go, all right, 5 years from now, this is where I see me. Hey, that's good. Actually, if you see yourself, how you see you and your show in 5 years or 5 months or whatever the future means to you, you should totally think about that. Just don't make a plan to get there. At least not during this meditation. That might lead to you planning on, later on. But right now, during the meditation, I just want you to cogitate and think about what the future actually looks like between you and your podcast. Also, don't plot out growth hacking techniques. It's so simple to think about who are people I'm not reaching, and you want to think about people that you're not reaching, large groups of people who might need to know about your show. You should totally think about those groups, but don't start plotting out growth hacking techniques. Again, that's being very tactical. And for this exercise, just thinking strategically is your goal. Also, if you start thinking about the processes in your sound, these are all good things to think about. Don't start making a list of equipment to buy in your head. Once again, you're going tactical. Stay higher up on that. Definitely think about the processes. Think about the problems with your processes and how some software, not specific software, or some equipment, not specific equipment, might help you through those processes or improve your sound. Definitely think about those things. Just don't plot out what you need to buy as soon as you get done with this silly meditation thing. Now, if you find yourself wandering down the path of what guests should I have on my show, if in fact you have guests on your show, go ahead and think about that, but don't make a list. Instead, think about that guest individually that you've got in your head, but I want you to picture that guest listening to your episodes. You're going to approach this person sight unsound, but let's say that they listen to an entire episode of your show, your most recent episode, perhaps. Would they have the right experience to say, yeah, I definitely want to be on that podcast? Think about that critically. Ask yourself those hard questions. And by all means, when you're doing this, let your mind wander. These are just some ideas to think about. To me, the best part of getting in this zone where you're thinking about the show, which, sure, I'll call it meditating, is that you never know where your mind's going to go. You never know what's going to come out of it. So let your mind wander. Try to keep your thinking as high level and strategic as possible. If you find yourself going down a tactical path where you start laying out things, force yourself to stop and back up. Now, for me, classic meditating never really worked. Guided meditation didn't really work for me. And I've tried it several different ways. And if it works for you, that's perfect. I'm not saying that it doesn't. But for those, I'm talking right now to you who's also going, meditating is dumb. Here's the way I meditate. I meditate on the couch. And by that, I mean I'm laying down on the couch around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, usually, thinking about taking a nap. Sometimes I can actually take a nap. And that's great, but oftentimes I don't. And I just lay there with my noise-canceling earbuds in, and I'm thinking about the things I just talked about before. Sometimes I meditate during the twilight hours. See, I don't sleep well past around 4 or 4:30 in the morning. So sometimes I get up and get things done, but sometimes no. I'll just take this time, because I don't want to get up yet. I've got an hour before I'm supposed to be up yet. Maybe I'll just take that time to lay there, dozing in and out, trying my best to just think about the future. Think about where the podcast might go. Think about something, meditating, if you will, but during that weird twilighty time. Take some discipline, obviously, to keep my thoughts on track during that time, but, it works for me. Maybe it'll work for you. Or maybe you know some hippie, new age, granola, crunchy type person. Again, I've been all of those, so I can use those terms with impunity. Maybe you know a podcaster that fits that bill who's been trying to get on you to do some meditating. We're talking about meditation. Go ahead and send them this episode. Maybe they're not yet aware of podcast pontifications, and this would be a good gateway for them to show that I'm somewhat nice. That's not true. I'm always nice to that particular community. I poke barbs, but they can usually take it. Most of them can. And if you like what I offer you every week, go to buymeacoffee.com/evoterra, where you can sign up to buy me a virtual coffee. And that's a wonderful thing. It lets me know that you really do appreciate the show, and it keeps me motivated to keep going and meditate about more things. All right. Enjoy the rest of your week. No episodes from me on Friday, so also enjoy your weekend, and I shall be back on Monday with yet another podcast, Pontifications. Cheers!